Hello, Star Family. Peace and blessings to you all. Welcome. Thank you. I'd like to touch on the last couple months in the spirit of recapitulation and recap, since we've weathered two previous cycles under the shadow of Pluto. Well, April saw a total solar eclipse on the Pisces Aries cusp, closely square to Pluto. May saw a close trine to Pluto. So we've been in this theme of upheaval, transformation, and here we are. So now for the June new moon, we do get a break from Pluto's dark, obsessive intensity. And we find ourselves in the shadow of dreamy, unfocused Neptune. I'm Michael. This is One Sky Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the main points around this lunar cycle, starting with the new moon. This new moon happens on June 18th, 2023. And for mainstream astrology in the West, it calculates the moon to happen in late Gemini. But we're going to use a precise form of sidereal astrology that's astronomically accurate. And it just reads the zodiacal constellations as the signs. And it's how it always was. That's in the sense that that's where our ideas about the zodiac came from. And so if you look up in the living sky, here's what you'll see. A new moon, June 18th, late in the stars of constellation Taurus. And it's on the Gemini cusp, aligned precisely to the degree of a fixed star, one of the legs of Orion, the fixed star Saiph Kappa Orion. And in the area of, it's a very cuspy area. We have Taurus and Auriga, Gemini, and Orion. And El Noth, this star here, which is often given to Taurus, has long been, and even by some systems, is still considered a star of Auriga. So the sun and moon are very much in a sort of well, not a no man's land, but a very cuspy area. When we look at the rest of the inner planets, Mercury sits here on Aldebaran, Alpha Taurus, and Mars and Venus are in Leo and Cancer, respectively. Going back through the zodiac, we have Uranus about to finish up Aries, Jupiter just into Aries and out of eclipse, and the North Node also about to finish up Aries, moving counter to the planets in a clockwise motion. The nodes move, the planets are moving counterclockwise. In Pisces, we have Eris, Chiron, and Neptune. Aquarius sees Saturn, and Pluto is about to finish up Sagittarius. So we have a lot of sort of late sign energy, the last degree of signs with Pluto and Uranus, the two planets of change and upheaval. So I want to note that Uranus is wrapping up Aries in the last degrees of that set of stars, and Pluto is likewise wrapping up Sag. So they're both wrapping up fire constellations, ready to ingress sets of Earth stars. Both these planets are associated with change, and both ingresses are expected to be events because they're slow movers. There's a sort of nervous tension in the ethers, like maybe we can feel changes or events, or maybe just something looming. Or maybe there's a little electric charge, a little extra something if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. I find cusps and sign changes like that. It's kind of twilight energy, a kind of really crisp electric energy that really has a lot of potential, and also can produce a lot of anxiety, can produce a little bit of a nervous tension. So now let's look at the new moon. The intention of a new moon, when we see a new moon like the chart we're looking at here, the idea is a restful idea. It's an inward looking, more of a strategic idea, and we can think of a new moon as a low point in an energetic ebb and flow, a rise and fall of energies. The new moon is going to be a time to plan and to look ahead, and we can think about the energies of the cycle as expressing through the full moon and through the cycles and phases of the moon. An idea that begins here in late Taurus. So we have those ideas associated with Taurus and the Taurus-Gemini cusp. And this is very much about listening. Very much Taurus is a pre-verbal mode of consciousness. Taurus is pre-verbal and Gemini is verbal. So we're sort of in this transitional area where we're dealing with a modality of consciousness that has to do with raw impressions, oftentimes sensual, oftentimes physical impressions. And Taurus is very much having to do in this sense with things as they are, where Gemini is having to do much more with things as we think they are, or things as we've labeled them, or things as we believe them to be. Taurus is about survival, and it expresses that urge through self-sufficiency, through drive to preserve, through preservation, to create security. Taurus is about fertility. It's about procreation, the sensual, body pleasure. It's about values and our valuables, the things we hold dear and the things we appreciate. And when we have a cusp, we always have to look at some of the other energies involved. And just to bring in Gemini, I don't want to confuse things with Auriga and Orion so much just yet. Although I will say that Auriga has always been associated overwhelmingly with the feminine, with the power of women, with the power of families. And the stars of it, Capella and Menkainen, are fortunate and more so for women, while Orion was always considered very practical, the hunter, the doer, very masculine energy, very outward, conquering, let's get food energy, very down to earth, strategic sort of like. I would associate Orion, the buzzwords of Orion, the practical, the active, and the fortunate. These are things we can associate with the stars of Orion. And now back to Gemini. And when we look at Gemini, we can think of it in terms of a set of stars that has to do with communication, learning, processing, information, and teaching. And we can think of it as having to do greatly with writing, speaking, and thinking. So it's very information-oriented set of stars. And we can think of it as having to do a little with logic. We have more so the function of logic itself in Virgo as critical thinking, critical analysis. But in Gemini, we do have an emphasis on that rational, linear, left-brained mode of thinking, that more like if-then, logic, it is by definition logical. The stars of Gemini, the way they process information, what they feed, what they nourish, what they grow and support. Very brainy, very very left brainy. Taurus, my friends, has a reputation as stubborn, while Gemini has a reputation as two-faced. But the Taurus-Gemini cusp can be a cusp that really pushes limits, because in late Taurus, things tend to be well established, right? Taurus is about establishing. So by the time we get here, we're we have something under our feet. In late Taurus, things tend to be well established. And in early Gemini, things tend to be curious and eager to learn. So we can develop impulses to go beyond the known, and we can develop impulses to go beyond current limitations or configurations. This new moon here in this cuspy territory can easily give rise to question of what's next, or what's outside this box, or what would the next view from the next plateau that I could summit to, what would that vista look like? Yeah. The new moon here in late Taurus is aligned very, very precisely with the stars of Orion. Not only Alnitak Zeta Orion, which we see here, within the orb of influence, but we do see an exact alignment, 0 degrees, 0 minutes with Kappa Orion, fixed star Saif, the leg, or one of the supports with Rigel of the constellation of Orion. And this brings the energies of Orion specifically into the frame of this new moon. So I want to talk about Saif, and I want to talk about Orion. Orion, in consequence of his boast that he could slay any beast bred upon the earth, the scorpion was brought forth mythologically, and Orion died from its sting. It's the sort of famous Greco archetype. The stars of the constellation of Orion are said to give a strong and dignified nature, self-confidence, inconstancy, arrogance, violence, impiety, prosperity in trade, and fortune in travel. By the Kabbalists, it is associated with the Hebrew letter Aleph and the first tarot trump, the juggler, aka the fool. And all of that is from constellationsofwords.com. I find the association with the Aleph and the Fool very interesting, because we can see in some of the other associations in the case of the Pashupati seal as a star map of Orion and the surrounding constellations. And in this depiction of the Vedic Lord Shiva as Nataraja, the stars of Orion is Nataraja, the dancing Lord Shiva. And here the stars of Orion, perhaps as Pashupati. This graphic is called the Pashupati seal. Pashupati was another form of Shiva, a sort of early form as Lord of Beasts, Lord of Wild Things, Lord of where the wild things are. The original Max, that's Shiva. So Orion was no mere animal, but Orion was a man. A mighty and triumphant, glorious prince. And he's pictured in the ancient Dendera zodiac, where we see a man coming forth pointing to 3 bright stars, the stars of Rigel, Bellatrix, and Betelgeuse, as his. And the name there given is Ha-Gat, which means he who triumphs. So the hieroglyphic character below reads Or, and Orion is anciently from this root, which means light. So that Orion means coming forth as light. The ancient Akkadian was Ur-Ana, the light of heaven. So I want to kind of just bring in some of those other ideas. Thank you, Constellations of Words, for being an amazing resource. I want to bring in some of those other ideas about the constellation Orion, because we tend to think in limited terms in a framework that's been handed down to us by our Greco-Roman predecessors who didn't always have, I mean, to be fair, they just didn't always have a vested interest in our own correct understanding. So, you know, it's good to look further to see that this was associated with the light of heaven coming forth as light, he who triumphs. The Fool in tarot, for those who don't know tarot, the Fool is like the ultimate. It's the card 0. It's the Fool is, tarot itself is often described as a depiction of the fool's journey. So the one who journeys is the fool. So we do have Saif here as one of the supports of Orion, one of the legs, if you will, with Rigel. And this is the star, this very supportive, rooted, more grounded energy within the sidereal mythology of Orion, that the new moon is precisely aligned to. Mercury too is aligned with a fixed star, Aldebaran, Alpha Taurus. I talk a lot about Aldebaran, so I'm not going to do that this time. It's linked with the themes of integrity and honesty. It's power. It gives power with the test. It gives power, and that power will be tested. It's a royal star, so it certainly does support success if you can deal with the hurdles that will be placed in front of you. So Mercury could involve hurdles around communication. They could involve hurdles around how we organize information. They could involve hurdles around movement or just thought in general. Mercury is squared here to Saturn, and it's not a wide or a narrow square. It's 4 degrees, which is, that's fine, but Saturn is stationed retrograde from Aquarius here. And Mercury square Saturn represents a test, as Saturn station retrograde is just sort of still in the sky. And in astrology, that's generally understood to increase intensity, to give the stationed body, Saturn in this case, a really etched in or like branded on the situation quality, where it's just sort of hanging out there. It's not in transit. There's no sense of flow. It's just right there in that same degree. So we have a little bit situation here with Mercury this month for the new moon, both empowered in Taurus. So we could be thinking about our own success. We could be thinking about things we appreciate. We could be about ourselves, about our own endeavors, about what we want to establish for ourselves. We could be thinking in terms of gain. We could be thinking in terms of stability. And this could be challenged. Could be challenged by Saturn in Aquarius. It definitely represents new ways of thinking, new structures of doing things, new modes of authority, new just patterns within society, especially anything technological going on right now that might be throwing a spanner into like any and every works. This could all be represented by Saturn square to Mercury. Mercury squares always produce anxiety, and Aquarius is an anxious set of stars. So let's be careful with these energies, especially because so much is riding on Mercury with its proximity to Aldebaran. And Jupiter too sits on a fixed star. Since we're covering the stars, he sits on Hamal, Alpha Aries, the head of the ram, and he's eclipsed. He's eclipsed still by the North Node, very close to Rahu, North Node, Rahu here. And So in a sense, he could be affected by appetites, and with this position, we could feel righteous. We have Jupiter square Venus too. That could really feed or fuel. We could feel righteous. We could feel sullen and ornery, or we could feel good. We could feel good about butting heads. But I wouldn't recommend it. I actually, because of the eclipse factor, I wouldn't really recommend that as like, fruitful behavior at this time. Could just be something that we might want to do, righteous and ornery, and we want to let someone know about it. What else is happening? New moon here in late Taurus is making a pretty close square, 0 degrees, 54 minutes to Neptune. Neptune in Pisces. Very strong at home, very nice, very peaceful. This could manifest in ways that we want to understand more clearly. So I want to go over this a little bit. This could come through as confusion or uncertainty. This could really easily manifest as insecurities. So if you don't experience these sorts of things, then you may bear witness to it. It's not a great time to make big decisions, and it's not a good time to make any decisions on instinct or hastily based on first impressions. This calls for consideration, more clarification than usual. So emotions can be heightened and feelings can be hurt by this influence. Especially with Mercury square Saturn, the feelings being hurt, the way we think, our security in the way we think could easily be attacked. Square to Saturn. This could just be a theme of the month. But this square to Neptune, the new moon square to Neptune, it really gives like fuzzy, hazy, confused, diffuse, kind of unmotivated to even focus and figure out what's going on. It's kind of stony surfer vibes, and then not in a good way. We may feel some escapist impulses. And when the situation that we're in would actually benefit from focus and consideration. So one of the challenges here is to balance the Taurus, which is very physical, with Pisces, which is very spiritual. When with the square, there's always a lot of power and access to excellent resources of raw energy, but there's always a sort of balancing act that needs to be overcome. And in the case of a new moon square to Neptune, from Taurus with Neptune in Pisces, we need to balance the physical and the spiritual. So if we're imbalanced in our general physical spiritual balance, we might feel pushed around, or we might feel increased imbalance, or a need to balance ourselves at a deep level. And with Pluto square the nodes, because Pluto's still actively T-squaring the nodal axis. I talked a little bit about what that means recently. You can find some great conversations about that in the recent treasure trove. But with Pluto square the nodes, the more primal and core dichotomies of the human condition are highlighted. And we can see this in a Pluto sense of these dichotomies. On the one hand, we desire to live, to evolve, to gain depth of knowledge and experience. And on the other hand, we desire to rejoin the void, to rest, to be at peace and escape the wheel. On one hand, we desire good health. On the other, we indulge and even intoxicate ourselves. In love, we desire dependability, security, stability. And at the very same time, we likewise desire excitement, risk, novelty. It's paradox that's being highlighted right now, right? Fundamental paradox. So a healthy balance between our physical and our spiritual dimensions needs to understand an inherent paradox. And the paradox of the physical spiritual is that in the physical realm, we are discrete, we are bounded, we have qualities and characteristics which can be measured. At the same time, we have a psycho-spiritual component to our being, which is absolutely unbound, inherently limitless. And the only rules that apply in the vast field of consciousness are the ones that we invent and believe. In the borderlands of dream and fantasy, we all get to experience the timeless, spaceless truth of our own infinite nature. We all have experiences of understanding how free our minds can be. Some of us find those experiences terrifying, and we shut that down. But that's the beginning of a tangent. I just want to say that the juxtaposition between mind and body, and psyche and soma, spirit and matter, that alchemy sits at the core of the mystical understanding of what it is to be human. To be human. So this is a great time to deepen our contemplations or explorations, experimentations, meditation around that subject matter. I mentioned Saturn stationed retrograde like a brand or like a real seal on the situation, and he's stationed retrograde on a star, Deneb Alpha Cygnus. This could really signify possible changes to our routines or our established norms. Could be outwardly. There could be problems with authority around this, the way it does line up. But it could be inwardly. It could represent changes in our patterns of thinking. I think we can expect denial, restriction, delay, adverse conditions to overcome. I think we can look at them as tests which are designed to temper us and hone our integrity and honesty. These are the words of Aldebaran: integrity and honesty, square to Saturn here. But there is potentially these restrictions or denials or delays could have to do with any changes that have happened since Saturn moved into Aquarius. And that happened in early February. Happened in early February. So it's a great time to look back and reassess that period of time from the point of view of that's the time Saturn's been in Aquarius. Saturn representing structure, authority, and so on. Aquarius representing the new, the revolutionary, the next, the radical. And remember too that just because Saturn's stationed retrograde is not a negative thing. It's not necessarily a positive thing. It's an intense thing. But Saturn is at his most progressive and humanitarian point here. In Aquarius, stationed retrograde means he's as far forward as he's going to move, and now he's just pushed as far forward, and he must move backwards. We must have retrograde motion. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's how we move. So there could be conflicts between progressive or newer ideas and old boy mentalities or established ideas. There could be expressions of real, genuine humanitarian, real novelty, real unexpected progressive gestures with Saturn stationed for a new moon in this furthest forward motion into Aquarius. So we can keep our eye open for things that express Saturn's placement there. And I want to take a look just at this. If you remember last month, I mentioned Sedna and Ceres. They're in grand trine with Pluto, and they are octaves of each other and higher octaves of the moon. The moon, Ceres, and Sedna are a sort of octave triplet. So this kind of brings in the themes of universality, transhumanism, universal love. And I bring this up because this month, if you're paying attention, this month we have incredibly close trines here to every trine involved in this scenario is 0 degrees. And so we have this very intense grand trine. Again, involving themes of universality, transhumanism, just getting beyond self-identity and even cultural identity, perhaps even beyond species identity, and just identifying more with life very broadly, with even with the life force is the pulse of it. I mean, we can get raw and transcendental. We can get really far out with this. So it's a great call. It's a call. It's a clarion call to transform our relationship to our humanity, to ourselves. And this is still going on, even though the new moon isn't making such intense relationship with Pluto this month. I do want to bring everyone's attention to that interesting formation. So let's just touch on some of these themes again and put some synthesis together. We have Jupiter, he's eclipsed, and a new moon square Neptune, and we could be shadow boxing. We could be projecting. We could be confused about our cause, even though our fist is in the air, committed. We might need to check and make sure, like, how are our values? How, like, if we're acting, are we acting on a humanitarian basis? Do our intentions have heart? Do they have integrity, nobility? Are they authentically good? That's going to be what Aldebaran is going to be asking about our intentions, our thoughts, and are we aligned? Are those thoughts aligned with our speech, our actions? If we are, we'll be honest. And that's what this new moon is asking for. I think Ceres and Sedna and Pluto may challenge us to expand our ideas and our good human hearts to encompass those humans that we have difficulty encompassing, right? Maybe they speak a different language or smell different or dress different, talk different. Maybe they're poorer than you, or maybe they're richer. Whoever you don't like, you know, we all have a natural enemy. This grand trine that I had up on the screen before, and I'll bring up again just to show you, we're talking about Sedna in Taurus, Ceres in Virgo, and Pluto in Sagittarius. This grand trine presents an opportunity to resolve, to forgive, to transform and metamorphose into something better, greater, more loving, and able to receive love. And it could be a very transformative spiritual time for many people. And with that, friends, let's take a look at this waxing quarter moon. The intention of a first quarter or waxing quarter moon is usually one of exterior focus and work, of energy being expended, of nurturing. You can think of the new moon as seeding a plant, and you can think of the waxing quarter or first quarter moon as that time when the plant starts to express itself, and you can see, is it healthy? What kind of plant is it? What's going on? The same energies of the cycle are unfolding, you know. And here we have a Gemini sun and a Virgo moon. So we have these very mercurial qualities with Mercury, who was on Aldebaran for the new moon, now sitting right on the cusp here. The moon is trine to Pluto, which brings in that theme of personal change that we talked about, everything we mentioned just prior. And the moon is opposite to Neptune, the Virgo Pisces axis. So again, this is gonna continue with the themes of confusion, irrationality, self-deception, escapism. You may be on your guard, but remember the people around you, the people you talk to, the people in, like, everybody's gonna be under this influence. So we have to be aware of our environment if we're going to take this into consideration to the fullest extent that we're being that we're able to, the fullest extent that we're able to. We can't just think to myself, oh, I've got that, that's kind of I got mineism. We really have to understand too that whether you've got that under control or whether you for some reason just experience that influence much less than someone else, it's just as valuable to be able to recognize all this in the world around you and say, oh, yeah, moon's opposite Neptune, Pisces, Virgo axis. People are going to be really split between their intuition right now and their logical, rational brain. It's really split between the right brain and the left brain. But anyway, I digress, Star Fam. We need to stay on target. We do have this moon Neptune opposition T-squared by the Sun and Mercury, and this could have an interesting effect. It could again, this cusp is all about new limits, or breaking old limits, or asking the question, what's next, what's outside of this. So it could represent new questions. We could have new questions at this time. We could represent new plateaus. They could be intellectual with the Sun in Gemini and the Moon in Virgo. And they could represent boredom with our limits, just a greater sense that something's out there, something awesome, something truly excellent, something truly whole and complete, symbolized by Neptune in Pisces. You have Mercury at this time right on Betelgeuse, Alpha Orion. It's a very fortunate star. And I just want to say that Mercury is so highly activated in this cycle, and by his placement on Aldebaran for the new moon, and then now here he is sitting right on Betelgeuse. And Betelgeuse is in the armpit or the shoulder of Orion, and it indicates victory, success, or achievement. Bernadette Brady says that, in her opinion, Betelgeuse is the most auspicious star of all, for the fulfillment that it offers seems to be totally uncomplicated by trials or hassles. Now, that could stand in some contradiction to the idea that Mercury for the new moon was on a star, Aldebaran, which came with trials and hassles, came with a test, a guarantee of test. Now we have success uncomplicated by trials or hassles. Well, we're likely to have both. We're likely to have trials and hassles, and we're likely to have at this time, the time of the first quarter moon, we're likely to have the blessing of success at our backs. It's not a guarantee. There are no guarantees, but it's a blessing. Definitely a fortunate star, Betelgeuse. That's hard to argue. So this first quarter moon, this waxing quarter moon, I see it as challenging us to recognize or align or to generate realistic thinking. Especially with Saturn having moved retrograde and trining this Gemini Sun. It pits the right brain world of inference and impressions against the left brain world of critical analysis and logic. And an ideal balance of that is realistic. It's not necessarily optimistic or pessimistic. It's just realistic. So we all have both modes of perception, right brain, left brain, and we can move towards whole brain, holistic consciousness. And this cycle is probably going to, wherever we go with this, is probably going to involve a movement towards syncing up our intuitive, artistic, irrational side with our logical, linear, rational side when it comes to how we organize our thinking. And with that, I'd like to move right on to the full moon. Whammers, look at that axis. Sagittarius, Gemini. But before we get ahead of ourselves, very exciting. Like the full moon is about the fullness of the cycle. It's about the harvest time, the high point, the richness. This is a time to plan on really sealing those energies of manifestation. If you're going to make something happen, the full moon is a great target date. And aside from that, any kinds of like intentions or trying to work with the flow of the natural ebb and flow of energies, it's good to understand that the new moon was in late Taurus and deals with security and stability and self-appreciation, self-relationship. While the full moon is in the Gemini Sagittarius axis. It's in Sag, reflecting the light of a sun in the stars of Gemini. And what that has to do with is clarifying truth from the sea of information. It's very intellectual, philosophical axis. It's a very philosophical, intellectual orientation to processing experience. The sun is on fixed star Elena. It's Gamma Gemini. It's a star that favors arts, the creativity of all kinds of beauty. And Mercury is on fixed star Sirius, which is just important in every way. It's about brilliance, breakthrough, accomplishment. This degree of the sky is very empowered. And to see the sun and Mercury here reflecting their light via the moon on Nunki, fixed star Nunki, is very, very interesting because Nunki, as some of you know, is the star in the archer's shoulder where the tension is drawn. It's where the bow is drawn. This point right here, you got to look up in the corner of the screen and see. I'm drawing the bow right here where the tension is. That coiled potential just ready to release, to strike, to penetrate, to activate. Very Eight of Wands energy, very manifest of will energy in Nunki. Coiled power, springing release, anxious urges, gives rise to anxious urges. But Jupiter is finally moving away from the North Node for this full moon. North Node will be headed that away. Jupiter headed this away. And Jupiter's in a trine sextile to the Sun Moon, which is most auspicious. Most auspicious. We could have a sense of aspiration and hope that has actually might have been occluded for months. It might have been something we've had a hard time having access to, a sense of where this is all going, or a willingness to start off in the new cycles that are being asked of us, or just general hope, just life could seem really with Jupiter eclipsed, and we're starting to get some light here from Jupiter again, free from the dimming influence of the North Node. There is a Mars Venus conjunction in Leo, and this Mars is very closely trine to Eris. Venus is very closely square Uranus, so we have, that's like a 1/2 degree square Uranus and a 1/2 degree trine Eris. That could be time for relationships to change. Not that they need to end or die or anything, but this could be a time. This full moon could really bring relationships into review. Maybe it could be a time for our approach to relationships to change. Or let's say that any process that updates or improves your relationship or your relationship to relationship is favored by this cycle. And I'm not trying to get needlessly meta. I mean that. Think about that. We all have a relationship to relationship. Yeah, it's true. All of this thinking, all of this action around truing up, course correction, Uranus is representing the kind of higher intentions, highest good. Eris representing the power to rearrange, the power to see hidden resources, the power to see what had been occulted previously. All this could be very positive, especially if we're ready for it. But because Uranus involves the unpredictable, because Eris involves the chaotic, approaching our relationships consciously is going to be very good at this time. I think with questions about what could change for the better, what needs to be looked at now that the opportunity to renovate is here. But Pluto here is conjoined by sign with moon, and Pluto and the moon in Sag favor deep personal truth. So the sun and Mercury in Gemini are going to favor brilliant expressions of comprehension, realization, recognition. Jupiter and Saturn are also forming significantly supportive trine sextiles to the axis, the sun-moon axis. So we have also a sort of a component, roughly speaking, of power here, personal power, the power to understand, the power to discern truth, and the power to use the truth, or I should say the opportunity to use the truth in maybe empowering or powerful ways. We could have an opportunity to step into our power, and possibly for many of us after some significant months of confusion and delay. And with that, I'd like to move on to the waning quarter. And the waning quarter is a time of introspection, of retrospection, of planning, of clearing, of low energy. The energy that we had at the full moon is now, cresting or has crested and is winding down, sort of tapering down. And the activities that are really favored at this time around the 9th of July include contemplation, retrospection, just looking, self-examination at what, the last month held for you, how you feel about it, what you want to do about it, that sort of thing. And we're here in Pisces, almost 2 degrees from Chiron. And looking back over this cycle, we may get the medicine. We may realize the healing qualities of what we've been through in retrospect. I'll say that. That's a strong potential here. We have Mercury, who's been so activated by Aldebaran, by Betelgeuse, by Sirius, and now what's Mercury doing? He's on Alpha Canis Minor Procyon. Not overly Compared to what has been happening, not a big deal. But Mercury is opposite to Pluto and trine to Neptune. It's very, very close opposition, 1 degree opposition, and a 0 degree 7-minute trine. So we could still have very activated mentality here. We could have a continuation of the activation of Mercury by stars. We now have activation of Mercury by the weird deep outer planets, the spiritual planets, the planets of spirit and soul. And I'm not going to predict anything as far as what we'll see, but if your thinking is very activated at this time, Pluto oppositions do intensify things. And so for this retrospective activity here at the last quarter moon, I just want to encourage everybody not to spin your wheels, but really to rest. With Neptune trine to Mercury, you can let the message come to you. Let the realization come to you. Moon, Chiron, Neptune all conjoined by sign, Pisces. Don't spin the wheels. Don't try too hard. That's my best advice. If Mars on Regulus, that's quite interesting because he's making a yod to Pluto, Neptune. And so this could be about developing our own philosophy. Pluto, Neptune is really syncretic. It has to do with finding your own way, not being a follower, not to say that there aren't good ideas out there, not to say Pluto Neptune reinvents the wheel, just to say that it's very bricolage in its approach to spiritual orientation. It wants to try a little of this, a little of that, and create its own personal philosophy, its own personal working magic, its own personal spirituality, its own personal relationship with nature, the gods, the forces of this world, and so on. And we can be understanding now the relativity and the context of any spiritual path or philosophical foundation that we may stand on. We could really be seeing that. And this is going to lead us into the energies of the next new moon. And I think that this has to do with the opportunity to be repairing our spiritual energy, repairing our spiritual integrity, especially in the light of Mercury's new moon alignment with Aldebaran. We can be seeing our truth in the light of this good self-acceptance. Now Mercury is in Cancer, the stars of the moon, and we can look back with the assistance of Chiron, with the blessing of Neptune, and we may be able to take great strides to repair our spiritual integrity and develop patterns of being where our thought, speech, and action are aligned, where our personal power is working for us very well, and we're able to accomplish because we're able to focus on our goals and move forward. That's the kind of thing that Pluto opposite to Mercury wants. It wants it to focus and commit. So let's take a look before we go at the next new moon in the time machine for July 17th. We're in the future, friends. And we have another cusp, this time Gemini Cancer cusp. There's a lot going on. There's quite a bit going on. We have a new moon square Eris and square Chiron opposite Pluto, which means that Eris is T-squaring a Pluto new moon opposition. And we're back to it, friends. We're back to the shadow of Pluto. Remember, we got a break this month. Not for long. There's going to be deep processes. There are actually no inner planets activated by the new moon, but every outer planet is making every outer planet, and Chiron included, is making close, important relationship. So get ready for some weirder impersonal intensity waves. Get ready for another Pluto month again. Break time's over. And as we wind it down, this will be what we're moving back towards. So we still have to use this time while we're able to be free of the oppressive influence of Pluto. We should be using this time to understand that the process started by eclipse season with the square to Pluto in April. That process is not over. We will continue into next month. We're just on reprieve a little bit. Friends, I want to say that this month I'm going to start a sweet interview series, and I'm going to start my first guest will be Verone Bright, and we're going to talk about astrology as medicine, the relationship between astrology and medicine. And we're gonna do as deep a dive as maybe an hour will allow. So very exciting. Please do look forward to that, and stay tuned. I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported my work, and that I do sessions. I do personal astrology. I do natal charts and personal transits. I love it, and I apply the evolutionary logic, the logic of Jeffrey Wolf Green's evolutionary astrology, to even sign or uneven sign, astronomically accurate, true sidereal astrology, using that zodiac. So I feel that it carries a profound resonance with the truth, and I certainly believe in my work, and I want to invite you all, if you're curious, check it out, oneskyastrology.com. Send me an email if you have questions or just want to chat. And if you want to chat, come visit us on Facebook. I know, Facebook, right? Gag me with a fork. But hear me out. There's a group called Radical Astrology, and it's a place where people get together and talk about sidereal astrology, especially constellational astrology. So, Facebook. Yeah. Friends, thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for watching until this point. Please do the YouTube things like share the video, like the video with a sweet, you know what to do. And I'll see you in the future again for interview series, for more videos, for next new moon cycle, and stay inspired, friends. Stay connected, and keep looking up. Love you all. Till next time. Ciao.